Konnichiwa. I'm really honored to be here with you, and I will share my screen. Konnichiwa. And I will just give you some important key elements to understand plastic pollution, because plastic pollution is very complex issue with many ideas that are not really the right one. So I would just like to try to explain you in a very simple way as possible what is exactly plastic pollution and how, therefore, we can fight it. I am working since more than 30 years on this subject, plastic pollution, and also how to find a solution. I've worked also a lot on the migration of additives from plastic, but also, of course, on the issue of plastic pollution itself. In fact, plastic pollution is not only the waste we can see, because we can see plastic macro waste, macroscopic waste. Half of this plastic has been used to produce or package our food. But plastic pollution is exactly what we cannot see. In fact, plastic are becoming dangerous when we cannot see it anymore. And why is that? Because plastic, compared to other materials, such as glasses, metals, papers, cardboards, have a very long and complex life chain. Maybe we should not use the word cycle, because there is no cycle for plastic. It's a very complex life chain, because plastic, starting from the very beginning of its production, is degrading, aging into very small particles that are emitted in all our environment. And then these micro and nanoparticles are diffusing everywhere, in the air, in the soil, in the water, up to within the organs of all living beings, including our own organs. And it is very important to always remind that plastic does not pollute only when it becomes a waste, which means after usage. It starts polluting since the very beginning of its production, and including during its usage, because during its production and usage, it also emits particles of plastics. And this has been demonstrated, for example, in water, which are bottled in PET. They are releasing micro and nanoplastics of PET. When we are using plastic in our houses, all the plastic used in our houses are also emitting micro and nanoplastics during their usage phase. Plastic is typically a linear economy materials, which means that there is an exhaustion of resources, which is oil, and above all, which is really the most important way, the most important aspect is not the exhaustion of oil, because we can think that once oil will be exhausted, we will not have plastic anymore. But the issue is really the accumulation of plastic waste in our environment. But the issue, the danger, is not only about accumulation of big plastic in our oceans, soils, and so on. The most important danger is about the fragmentation of plastic in small particles and the diffusion of these small particles in our ecosystem. And the smaller is the particles, the higher is the danger. When the particle reach the nanoscopic scale, then it can translocate it inside our organs. And there it will accumulate and it will create inflammatory diseases like cancer. Currently, we're assessing the environmental impact of particles using a methodology named life cycle analysis. But here, this is the time horizon of life cycle analysis, LCA methodology. Here you have it. And this methodology is taking into account only the production, the usage, and the short-term post-usage stages. So, for example, the impact of incineration and recycling will be taken into account in life cycle analysis. But then the landfilling, the downcycling, we will come back later for explaining what it means, and the mismanagement, which lead all to the accumulation of plastic particles in our biosphere, atmosphere, lithosphere, the soils, and hydrosphere in the water is not taken at all into account. And this is what is called the plastic footprint. So the very long-term impact of plastic are not taken into account in the carbon footprint, while we need to calculate plastic footprints which take into account the impact on decades, centuries, and millennia. And I would like to invite you to read a paper that I've published in Nature Sustainability for recognizing the long-term impact of plastic particles by taking into account and calculating the plastic footprint in addition to the carbon footprint. Okay, and by using the life cycle analysis, we are ignoring the most important danger of plastic, which is related to the plastic footprint, which means the impact of very small plastic particles. Okay, so it is important also to recognize that when plastic became a source, while plastic became a source of concern for society, it also became a new source of inspiration in the form of waste, which means that people have decided to consider plastic waste as a resources and then to transform it into new products, which means that then the waste will disappear. So we have decided all together to say, okay, on one side, we have the linear economy of plastic with resources exhaustion, waste accumulation after usage. Then we will transform this linear economy into a circular economy, which means that we will take example of nature. Nature is able to regenerate, for example, the vegetal leaves which are falling in your garden on spring, on autumn. You will find it the same on spring because nature is able to degrade and regenerate the leaves, and therefore the leaves are not accumulating. So this is what we have decided to do, because when we have a circular economy, we do not have waste accumulation. So the problem could be solved. So what are we doing? Currently, we are able to recycle plastic. This is what I call the recycling economy. The best recycling we are able to do for plastic is the recycling of PET bottle only, which represents 1 to 2% of the total plastic we are using. And this is a real recycling because we are able to wash, grind, decontaminate, and regenerate the same plastic bottles 1, 2, or 3 times maximum, because we are There is some plastics that are degraded inevitably. And at the end, we are able to reduce a little bit our pollution of plastic for usage of plastic, PET plastic bottle used only for drinking or milk or so on. So it is not a perfect recycling because we can recycle it only 2 or 3 times. It's not an infinite recycling. It is possible only for PET bottle use for drinking and only for PET, not for other type of plastic, which means that it can be applied only to 1 to 2% of the plastic we are using. So it's not perfect, but there is a little effect for reducing plastic pollution, little. So the issue, the problem is that currently we are naming recycling what is in reality downcycling. What is downcycling? Downcycling is not about regenerating the same object. For example, here, a bottle waste is becoming again a bottle. No, it's about transforming the plastic waste, which remain degraded, into another object where a lower quality plastic is accepted. For example, here, it's about transforming a PET bottle waste into a pullover or a chair. And if recycling, for example, of PET is contributing to reduce plastic pollution, downcycling does not contribute at all to reduce plastic pollution. At the contrary, it fuels the plastic pollution because these materials are still going on degrading into micro and nano plastic, into plastic particles when they are aging. The pullover, the first washing, will release many plastic particles and will go to pollute the water. In addition, downcycling will replace, because new markets for these degraded plastics are seeked. So it means that this degraded plastic, this downcycled plastic, will replace traditional and local material like wool, like wood, that are not polluting. But this means that you will replace these local and safe materials with degraded plastic that will go on degrading, which means polluting. And in addition, one more default is that once we have built all these factory to transform plastic waste into new objects, then we have to feed this new factory with plastic waste, which means that our society is becoming dependent of plastic waste that we still need to produce at the same rate. And the result is that this downcycling does not contribute to reduce plastic pollution. And this is the proof. This is the evolution of consumption of plastic per capita, virgin plastic, in different geographical area in USA, in Europe, and in China between 2000 and 2022. And you can see here that the more we are recycling, the more we are consuming plastic, virgin plastic, while it should be the contrary, which means that the recycling of plastic, the increase of plastic recycling should decrease our virgin plastic use. It should be in the other way. So here, what is called recycling, in reality, mainly, it's not recycling, it's downcycling, increasing plastic. So if we look, this is an example of results in Europe. What happens to our plastic packaging today in Europe? This is just about plastic packaging, okay? used for packaging. This is the total quantity used, most of them being petrochemical plastic. They are used, and only a few percentage are closed loop recycles. This is about PET recycling. And in that case, you can see that we are saving raw materials. Then we have 34% of our plastic packaging waste, which are incinerated, and therefore they are contributing to carbon footprint. The rest, 10% are lost, 16% are landfilled, and 32% are open loop downcycling. And all these lost, landfilled, and downcycled plastic are contributing to increase the huge reservoir of micro and nanoparticles we are accumulating in our soil, in our ecosystem, and in our body. And this represents 58% of the total waste, which means the majority of the plastic packaging waste. And this represents the plastic footprint. So, as I told you, plastic does not pollute only when it is thrown away. During the production and during the usage stage, they are also polluting. This is some example here. And you can see that during the usage of a boat, of clothes, of tires, there is a production of what we call primary microplastic, while the management of waste are just producing what we call the secondary microplastic. So here are the different stages of a plastic life chain, not cycle, because there is no cycle for plastic. So we should say plastic chain, not plastic life chain, not plastic life cycles. And here there is a pollution during the production stage, the usage stage, the post-usage stage, and the very long-term end of life. Okay. So it is important to remind that the key solution for reducing plastic pollution is to reduce our plastic consumption and use. This is really what we call the source reduction, and it must be the priority in our actions to fight plastic pollution. Our priority, I repeat, must be to reduce our plastic consumption and uses. And this is what this huge sculpture was trying to say during the international negotiation in Nairobi in Kenya. The priority is really to close the use of plastic, to reduce our plastic consumption. We have the feeling that plastic, a material that we are daily using, is not dangerous, but to the contrary, we should ask to ourselves, is the plastic used worth its long-term dangerosity? This is a very important question, to my opinion. And this is why we are now trying to address unnecessary and avoidable plastic pollution, which means that in our strategy to fight plastic pollution, the first goal must be how to reduce the use and the production of plastic to the just necessary. It means that we need to remove all unnecessary products and setting up alternative practices. Then, and only then, it's just a secondary goal, the first one being reducing our consumption. All the plastic remain on the market, we should try to find a sustainable and safe management of this plastic. But the first objective is really to reduce our consumption. So you can see here in the decision tree, the first objective, the first priority is to remove from the market all unnecessary plastic. And how can we do that? We should question our lifestyle to understand where are superfluous plastics. For example, by using reusable glasses or metal bottle instead of PET plastic bottles. And it is also important to create an interface between art, science in order to inform the general public. And this is what I am doing by creating a play where I am collaborating with artists to make more easier for people, including children, to understand why we must reduce our consumption of plastic. In our laboratory, this is an overall view of the strategy we are developing in our laboratory. So in my laboratory, we are studying the impact of plastic pollution, but also developing solutions. And for that, we are focused on developing biodegradable materials. We are developing these biodegradable materials from agricultural residues that are not unused for food or feed application in order to not compete with these food usages. And these residues are converted into a biorefinery system into different type of bioproducts, bioenergy, fertilizer, and biodegradable materials able to replace plastic. These materials are biocomposites, biosource, but non-food sources, bioprocessed, biorecyclable, and biodegradable. And it is also important that even if these materials are very interesting, they will be never able to replace the huge amount of plastic we are currently using, which means that even if we are developing this type of materials, we are always putting in priorities the reduction of our consumption. Then I would like to end this presentation by reminding a very important fact is that plastic is dangerous because it's not biodegradable in natural condition. And this means that in our world, there is absolutely no organisms that is equipped with biological tools to digest these materials. And this is why in our laboratory, we are developing only biodegradable materials, because this is a guarantee that the material is able to reintegrate in a naturally existing biological cycle that stabilizes our ecosystem. And therefore, it is a guarantee that these biodegradable materials will never accumulate for decades, centuries, or millennia in our environments and will never jeopardize our health for centuries, because non-biodegradable packaging is jeopardizing the survival of the next generation, which means that this is a very dangerous heritage. So thank you very much for your attention. I really hope, deeply hope in my heart, in my deep heart, that all countries in the world will be able to understand what is plastic pollution and how we can fight it by reducing our consumption of unessential plastics.